All this computer hacking is making me thirsty.
All I wanna do is drink beer for breakfast.
Suds and Security.
All I wanna eat is them barbecue chips. All I want is someone just to try to protect us.
You ready?
Do your thing.
All right. It's time for Suds and Security.
Damn, I love that. I got to tell you.
Welcome to beautiful downtown Fort Myers, home of the Rocket Lounge.
And we are in the Rocket Lounge. The area, Southwest Florida's only, holy moly, no.
Oops.
Southwest Florida's only.
Was that Dieter just passed out?
No, he didn't. Peter's doing all right.
I said Dieter.
Oh, Dieter too. I'm sorry. You know,
I hate it when you do this to me
I
in
can't
front
hear
of
anything.
people.
Southwest Florida's only accelerator, incubator. It's awesome. Look at
And
this
I tell you, this place is beautiful.
It is unreal. Hold on, I'm gonna take some more video real quick.
Well, while you're doing that, I'd like to talk about the beer. So
that beer is just the shiznit, right? I mean, look who's on that.
So
beer.
Rocket Lounge has been sponsoring our beer for our podcast this evening, and this is our last one. It's a 10%er, which is really nice. It's also the largest beer. The really cool thing is that it has Peter's picture on it, and I know you guys can't see it.
I really
but
want
we've
to
actually got
like
Peter's picture on the beer. He is a monk in Belgium, only part-time, and he was nice enough to bring beer that he made himself. This is handcrafted. This is Peter beer. A lot of the ladies are familiar with that here in the crowd, but so thank you. We're going to go ahead and open them now. Maybe.
Is he going to do it?
Can you get more?
You said it wasn't going to pop.
Gosh,
That
look at
popped.
that.
Whoa! Hey! Oh! Yeah, all right.
Look at the cheers. 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 Prost. Prost.
Yeah, this is a great beer.
Wow, the top's really not made for your lips, though, is it? It's big. It's bigger than normal. It's bigger than...
I'm going to leave that one alone.
Well, it's not. It's, right. Well, not my wife. She's never said that. So...
Do I got to edit that?
No, you don't have to edit that at all. Real quick before we get started, again, we're downtown Fort Myers, beautiful downtown Fort Myers, in the Rocket Lounge. I'd like to do a shout out to Brian, who's running some camera stuff for us and some sound stuff, and he's about to be a new dad.
Yeah,
so a couple more weeks, and so here's to you and Mama, and we look forward to seeing the little Brian.
And I want to thank the Rocket Lounge again for hosting us, for sponsoring our beer. Really cool. We've never done these live before,
yeah,
so
awesome.
This is a lot of fun, and we couldn't have done it without them.
Yeah.
So that's
thank
awesome.
you very much.
You guys.
Appreciate it. Again, I don't know how much.
Thanks, Brian. Coming all the way from Naples.
Oh, it's not that far.
Yeah.
So far.
He came all the way from Cleveland. Shout out to the Browns, the Tribe,
Last place.
the Cavs, and of course the Buckeyes.
Go Steelers. Go Steelers.
All right, so what are we going to talk about today?
So today we're going to talk about the insider threat.
Oh, there's an insider up there that I just do not like.
Yeah, the dude from Jurassic Park, right?
Right, yeah, that guy, the big guy. Yep. All right, so what's insider threat? I don't understand what that means. I mean, I see Snowden's picture. I see Jurassic Park. Very good actor. What are we talking about here?
It's Newman.
Newman.
Right.
Right, yeah. Newman.
So who knows what insider threat is? I know you do, but good. And David,
we got like 3
I
or 4
like
people.
that. All right. So yeah, what are the hardest things when you think? And I'm gonna make it think a little abstract, but when you think about what are the hardest things to detect inside an organization, it's someone who's already inside, right? So someone who already has your passwords, is allowed on your network to do things, and then starts to do things maybe against you or against your country or whatever you want, whatever it is you have, but
against your
trying
company,
to detect someone who already has legitimate access to your network, right? Who already has legitimate access to information, who now does illegitimate things with that information is extremely difficult, right? This is a big push. It's a big push in the government sector. It's a big push in the private sector, trying to understand how to defend against insider threats. And
it doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing it on purpose,
and
right?
that's just it. That's why I had to pull this slide up because of this poor chick right here, careless user, right? And
that's really her name.
It just says that. So I'll give you a quick story, and I've given this story here before, but you think about it this way. So we can put in all the technology we want. We can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars putting in all this great intrusion detection systems and firewalls and antivirus and in machine learning and all this fun stuff, right? And all a user has to do is take their phone and tether it to their computer and download whatever the hell they want, right? Everybody does it, right? Everybody tethered your phone before, and it's happened to us. I mean, we've had clients that, that
was one of the hardest cracks we had to do, right? Was a guy that had his phone tied to his computer.
Trying to and just download whatever he wanted.
Right.
It gets past all the detection. It's past everything. It's out of band, right? We use that as pen testers for some of the covert devices we have. We do out of band information stealing with that kind of stuff. So it's that kind of stuff. It's users, and it's all the way up to industrial espionage. So again, as a startup or someone who has intellectual property that is they really want to protect. What if you have an employee who says, "Hey," and let's take Apple, not a startup, but this just jumped in my head. There is a standing offer to Apple employees that an unknown Chinese operative will give you $4,000 for your employee ID and password. You don't have to be an admin.
Somebody said not enough. Love that.
Right.
Yeah, that's the same thing I thought. $1 million, I'm giving it to you.
But it's not an admin. You don't have to be an admin. You just have to have a username and password on the network, right? It's that kind of stuff, and it happens a lot. I mean, it happened obviously. Snowden is the big one. I mean, for us, but all that kind of stuff. It's so hard for IT teams and even cybersecurity teams to detect that they're doing that kind of stuff because they have legitimate access, and yet they're stealing that stuff and putting it out there. So. To me, that they're the biggest risk.
Yeah,
I mean, the biggest risk to an organization is from the people who are already inside, and it doesn't mean that they're always malicious, but careless, whether it's malice or whatnot. It's so hard for us to detect. It's I don't know.
Well, I wasn't going to talk about this, but CPR Tools had this happen. Probably 15 years ago now.
Way before my time.
Right, way before my time there.
I'm interested.
Honestly, yeah. So 15 years ago, we had an employee who had overheard a rumor that he was going to be fired. He was a programmer. Overheard a rumor that he was going to be fired, which was not true. He was not going to be fired, but heard a rumor of that, and came in the evening. And took a floppy disk at the time, right? Yeah, floppy disk. And took
anybody, you and him, and
I think everybody here knows what a floppy disk
maybe
is.
Him, yeah, that's about
Brian
it.
does. He's from Ohio. That's all we still use. So, but anyway, yeah. So he took floppy disks, the pack you could buy of 10 or whatever, and he filled them up with IP, and then quit the next morning, and then put those out on a bulletin board. Or something similar for everybody to see. And actually how it was found was an innocent search, and I won't go into the specifics because I wasn't there at the time. I'm actually the one that found it. But just an innocent search for the name of the company, and lo and behold, we found a treasure trove of information. And at the time, the owner of the company didn't even know that it had happened.
Wow.
So, it's not just people, doing things that you read about on the internet where they're locking you out of the network. Or we had a client who their IT person, one individual, small company, held him hostage.
Yep.
And they brought us in and acted like we were FBI. It was great. But so yeah,
can neither confirm or deny that. But
it happens. It happens here. It happens everywhere.
Well, and I think that the hardest thing about it is that when you have someone who's inside who again has access to information that people won't, they immediately understand the value of that information, right? So they know what the crown jewels are. They work for the company. They know what those crown jewels are. So stealing them may not be that difficult if you don't have good controls in place or things we talked about before. But they know the things are going to hurt the organization the most, right? So detecting that and stopping that is extremely difficult. I mean, even for us. I mean, our insider threat. We have an insider threat program, but it's one of the more difficult things I think we have to do, right? So this is from I mentioned the Verizon Report. So for geeks like us in the security industry, the Verizon Report is like the candy when it comes out because they get a ton of companies that have been breached. They crunch a ton of data and then they just give it away. It's awesome. But 77% of internal breaches were by employees, right? That's huge versus external actors only, right? So everybody's worried. We talk about it all the time. The unknown people getting in your network and doing badness, but in all honesty, it's usually there's an insider there doing something, right? Of the 77%, they don't break down, what was unintentional, what was intentional, what was malicious, what wasn't malicious, but it's still caused by people on the inside, right? So how do you think we can fix that?
Yeah. So and the numbers, even if you play it out even more, the numbers actually bear out to it's typically an IT centered employee, and I think it's a very high percentage. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but it's in the 70s, where it's 70%, where it's an IT employee who's actually doing the theft. So I know, like I read a few months ago, maybe it's been longer, I'm old, but NSA, because of Snowden, NSA actually put in place a policy that said there has to be at least 2 IT admin to do anything. To do anything within their system. So I mean that tells you right there who they think is going to do the data.
I put that up there. But this, anybody know what that is? A stack of needles. Oh, Peter wants to ask a question before I get into my stack of needles.
Here we go.
Let me
yes, Peter, the beer's good, and yes, we think you look lovely in the picture.
So awesome.
Okay, that's all great. The question is,
like it. No, I'm waiting for him to show up in his monk outfit.
Yeah. I'm a monk, but besides that, so basically you're talking about policies. So again, you want to create some kind of policies, IT as well as operational, but you can go too far, and then operationally you can disable the whole organization. So where is the balance? So is there a balance?
The policy really, when it comes to, and again, Greg is our insider threat policy guy. I forget what it's called, but it's got
TPSO
policy, whatever.
I got a lot of initials after my name.
But it's really about education. So it's not so much about, you can only, he's talked about it many times, you can only put so many controls in place. And honestly, I can get around the controls that he's put in place. He can get around the controls I put in place. So it really comes down to education. So you have to educate all of the employees to look for that unusual thing. So all of a sudden now John starts coming in, and instead of working 8 to 5, he's now working from noon to 8 o'clock in the evening. Everybody else leaves at 5 o'clock, and now he's there alone for 3 hours. And somebody should say, yeah, that's kind of odd. All of a sudden he started doing that. Those are the kind of things that employees have to look for, and that's really comes from education, and that's the biggest part of insider threat. I'm probably jumping way ahead here, but it's about education.
I think you hit it on the head, and that's true. The things you have to do for these kind of things is it's 100% education. It comes down to educating all of your employees to understand look for things, and we'll get into that too. Look for things that are not normal. Look for people who, again, are working odd hours when they shouldn't be. People who are looking to get access to information that they don't need to have. We're big into need to know. Right, so if I'm working on a project and John has anything to do with it, we don't need to talk about it. He doesn't have a need to know. Same thing with things that they do. If I don't have a need to know, I don't want to know about it. Right, so
is it just human systems, or these are IT systems?
There
as
are
well,
some IT systems, and there are some things you can do technology, but for insider threat, it's really education. The key to fixing insider threat is educating people to look for the signs that someone could be doing something
so what
wrong.
About snitching? So aren't the employees will consider it snitching that I'm talking about others, but maybe it's nothing.
Right, but you at least have to investigate it, right? So this is the problem with insider threat, and which is why I kind of put this thing up here. It's searching for a needle in a stack of needles, right? So it's very, very difficult. You're looking for that one needle in that whole stack of needles. It doesn't jump out at you, right? So you have to have that.
That's beautiful, by the way.
That's
the first graphic I've seen today. That makes sense to me.
I searched for a whole minute on.
Yeah, that was awesome.
How's the beer?
Peter.
Dieter.
I'm sorry, Dieter.
I'm not a monk.
Well, I'm looking at this, and so I apologize.
And it pops up.
What can I do for you?
Is it not getting even worse because there's a big trend that even corporations are now moving their people out of the comfort zone of their corporate buildings and put them in home offices or in co-working spaces to be closer to customers and startups? So that's another level.
Right.
To secure internal networks when they are sitting outside. And
there are ways to do that too, again, but it all comes down to understanding patterns of access, of what people should have access to, classifying your data, right, which is a pain in the ass, right? So we have to do it by default, but most businesses don't classify their data. They don't say, hey, this data only needs to be accessed by executives, and this data only needs to be accessed by executives and frontline managers, and then all the way down the line, or this only needs to be accessed by the marketing department, or however you classify that stuff out. It's not, if you have an established company, that's a project and a half, right? I mean, that's years. As a startup, I think you could probably start doing that more effectively in the beginning, understanding how to classify data, and then watching for access outside there, looking for people who want more access than what they need. If you don't need that access to do your job, I mean, there's a reason why Need to Know is out there, and it works, right? Because it does. If I have plausible deniability and I don't need to see that information, why do I have to see it? It's.
And I think what you say, Dieter, I think that becomes more of the technical security measures that you can put in place then, because now you've got someone outside reaching in, and now you can monitor what they're accessing and stuff probably a little bit more
on the remote
closely.
side, it's a little easier, right? Yeah. It's the guys who come in with a thumb drive, right?
Yeah.
Which, as much as you want to try to not have that happen, it's not the easiest thing in the world to detect. Hey, I'm plugging in a thumb drive and I'm taking some information with me.
Make them use a floppy.
Yeah.
Make them use the floppy.
But we still do that in Ohio, so it would be nothing weird.
Take them weeks.
We use actually 8 1/4-inch floppy.
Yeah, they come out with big backpacks,
8.5
right? Yeah, they have all these floppies in there. What are you doing with those, right? But it is that kind of stuff. It's people acting different, people who are disgruntled or just act strange. I mean, people when they're doing something.
I mean, do a search on the internet using whatever I use Ask Jeeves. Do a search, whatever your favorite search engine is, and just do a search for insiders, and you're going to find all kinds of people who have locked their companies out of access for their servers because they thought that they weren't being treated correctly. You're going to find people, surprisingly enough, again, I think it's near 75% of the people who do it for a second income.
Right.
People take from their current employer and sell that data or whatever for a second income. So, yeah, stats are staggering about that.
It is. And I'm glad you saw that. That's the reason why I got that one.
That is classic.
I'm glad you noticed that.
That is classic. David, what can I...
Hi, this is David Serby.
Mr. Serby.
You guys doing this podcast. And
Thanks
very
for coming.
informational. I guess one of the things I think about where your internal threat is more than likely an IT member is that they understand the value of non-tangible assets. So how do you guys, or perhaps you can recommend a strategy for conveying real value to non-tangible things? If you had a briefcase of $100,000, you would have a security guard, but your email server, whoever wants to be an admin on there, just let someone else handle that. So I guess maybe you guys can elaborate on that.
And to me, that comes down, it's still education, right? So it's educating people to understand the value of information, right? Because most companies now are information-based companies, right? So it's not just the information you have stored that's maybe intellectual property, but it is, let's take the email server example, right? People send emails that they just don't want released, right? It happens.
Sony knows that.
Sony knows that, right? It happens, right? So understanding that information is valuable, and understanding how to train people to look. When it gets to be that size, it's not just one IT guy. It's usually an IT guy or two or three. Training them to understand what to look for when someone's disgruntled and to say something, which I'll bring that slide up to. That see something, say something.
Trademark.
It is a trademark by the government. I just found out, but you really do it. It really is. It really comes down to that. It's training people to look for things that just don't feel right. That gut feeling you have. It's like that guy's just not acting right. I need to say something. And that's honestly half the training we go through is like, listen, this guy's not acting right. You just got to say, you need to report. It needs to be investigated. He may not be doing anything wrong. Maybe he had a bad week. Maybe he had a fight with his wife, or his husband or whatever. So what? Okay, that happens, right? But maybe it's not. So why take the risk? So it's better to investigate and find nothing than to not investigate and be ripped off.
But I think also it's about, you talked about, it's easy to identify a briefcase with $100,000 in it that's valuable. So I think really it's the C-level executives within the organization, within the company, who have to sit down and maybe they have to, everybody in the company, and you have to pull in some frontline managers, but they have to determine that. They have to say that our IP, and Greg talked about it, the crown jewels are this. If this leaves, we're all out of jobs. So we have to protect this at all costs. And they really do have to do that. We do that. Mm-hmm. We know what our crown jewels are in both companies that we own, and we protect them. And very little folks have access to those. And if they do touch them, Greg knows about it immediately. So yeah, I mean, that's what you have to do. And it sounds like being a dick, but you're not. You're protecting our walls.
The value of your
I want to be able to come here and drink free beer, right. But Peter won't invite me if I don't have any cash.
You're protecting the value of your company.
That make it free?
And you're protecting your employees too. I mean, that's what you're doing. So,
sure. Yep.
And this is something I downloaded because I think it's important for insider threats. So who's ever heard of shadow IT? And this happens all the time. I know David has. But this problem is not going away. right? This problem is just going to get worse because we have all these great startup companies, right, who are making all these great apps, who do all these great productivity things, and we have people who are going to work who want to be more productive, which is an admirable thing, and they go, great, I want to use my own Dropbox account. I despise Dropbox when it comes to security, right? So that's information leaving that's encrypted that I just don't like it. But I love this one up here. I lost my flash drive, but I found this one. So if you ever come to any of our malware talks and you grab a flash drive from me, you will never ever grab another flash drive again, I promise you, because we will load that thing with all kinds of stuff that people don't.
You will get rickrolled.
You will get rickrolled, right? So, and I'll give you a quick story on that before we wrap up. But one of the things we put on flash drives when we do pen test, and I don't mind giving this away because we don't use it anymore, but we'll throw flash drives around with a company and we'll call a file called company name executive compensation.xls, and just leave flash drives around with that on there. Who's not going to open that file, right? Everybody wants to know what the fuck their boss makes, right? You open up that file, it has a macro that automatically runs, your computer's popped, you're just done, right? So it's that kind of stuff. It's people installing apps and things that they just don't understand or haven't been vetted by IT or vetted by the business or approved by the business that can cause issues. And that's an insider threat too. It is. It's installing these things that, again, they're throwing out files to Dropbox, right? That's a violation, right? If you're giving out personal information. So that's the thing that IT teams end up doing. So, 5 signs of insider threat activity. I stole this from Cisco. It's really good. So obviously people trying to get credentials they don't have. So getting access to, if you have an employee who's trying to get access to things they shouldn't, or asking for your username and password, that's a good sign. If they're acting suspicious, again, coming to work at late hours, going home late, acting nervous, that kind of stuff. Getting unauthorized access to places or information they don't have. So asking to go into places or trying to get in places maybe they shouldn't. Maybe trying to get into network shares they shouldn't have access to, which you should have in your SIM. Unusual copying files and that kind of stuff. I mean, these are things that are hard to detect, but with some security controls you can. Obviously, policy violations. If you don't have policies, then obviously you don't know what a policy violation is, but it's why policies are so important. So the last slide I have on this is the first line against insider threats is absolutely the employees themselves. I didn't come up with that. I found that online too, but that's 100% true. The first line of defense almost against any cyber attack is usually employees themselves, right? They're going to be the ones that are on the front line. They have to be trained. They have to understand what's going on. They have to see that these things are going on. Education is still key. You guys notice there's a theme here, right? Right. I'm talking about education. You got to get educated. I didn't put the trademark after that, so I don't even know if I should say it.
I'll say it. Go ahead and say it.
Okay,
And I'll
so
say
see something, say something.
Trademark.
That's the biggest thing we can tell people about insider threat. If you see something funky, just tell your supervisor, tell your IT team, tell somebody that, hey, listen, I don't think this is right. It doesn't hurt. Again, it doesn't hurt to investigate, do a little bit of looking under the covers and that kind of stuff. But if something is going wrong, that's the best.
Yeah,
time
and I would
to
hope.
tackle
I
it.
mean, I think Peter said something about the snitching, or and I think I would hope in business we're beyond that. I mean, maybe we're not, but I would hope that we're beyond that. That we don't worry about snitching. That we just do what's right and move on from there. And again, I mean, it really lies in the employees to see something, say something, but also if they do something to say something.
Well, to me, and it's about culture too. So, and part of that comes down to for us, and I don't mind sharing some of this information. So, we run a very open network. We have controls, but we do research, right? We're a security research company. We're a data research company. We use Tor. We go to funky websites. We do things. We're looking for different malware and that kind of stuff. We download that stuff. So our environment is very, very open, right? So if someone does something, they make a mistake, and we see it and it gets flagged in our system, they're not getting in trouble for that. And they know it, right? It's like, hey, I need to come to your computer. I maybe need to take some memory dumps and look at some things, but they know they're not getting in trouble for that kind of stuff because they made a mistake, right? And that kind of culture, I think, is what needs to happen in security in general. It's really not an IT problem. It's a business problem. It's a cultural problem that, hey, listen, I did something or I noticed something. I'm going to say something and I'm not going to get in trouble for that. And that's how we work, and it works out well for us. But other organizations, I think, need to do that too. I think they need to have that culture of, I made a mistake, or maybe he made a mistake, or I noticed things. This is happening. It's not an automatic, hey, it's a shitstorm, everybody's getting in trouble. It's like, let's investigate and find out what's going on. So
really protecting yourself, wrapping up here. again, thank you very much for sponsoring us. We certainly appreciate it. The beer's awesome.
The beer is very
I have
good.
like 8 beers left to drink now. So, but really wrapping things up, it's really about education. It really is truly about people, end users must be educated about not just this, but all cybersecurity issues, because they're the tip of the spear. In the military, I was in the Air Force for 20 years, and if we call it the tip of the spear, I'm 27 right now, but we called it the tip of the spear, and the tip of the spear is that front line of defense, and that's really what end users are.
Yep.
They're the front line of defense. They're the ones that see the spam. They're the ones that see the malware, the emails, the phishing emails that come in.
I agree.
And if they understand what to look for and what not to do, then everything will
Yep.
just be fine.
So the
and
two things
flowers and
I can
roses.
leave with, I'm going to say that that people need to understand is that security is not a technology problem. It's not an IT problem. You cannot leave security to your IT teams to say, hey, listen, you're my IT guy. You just take care of security. I'm going to forget about it. It's a business problem. It needs to be taken in account at the highest level of your business, whether you're a small startup, whether you're a company that has a board of directors and C-level executives. Security needs to be up there with the board members and the C-level guys. It needs to be at the top of the list. It's not an IT problem to fix. I mean, I think IT has the solutions to help technologically secure some things, but the problem is not an IT problem. It's a business problem, right? And two, education is it. I mean, that when it comes down to it, that if we can get enough people educated, the problem starts to be less of a problem. So that's my.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I think I already said all of that. But
man,
yeah,
awesome night. This was great. Thank you everybody for coming out. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for asking questions. Anybody have any other questions?
Yeah,
before
any last
I turn off the
questions
tape?
before?
You don't have anything smart to say before I'm okay. Good.
Nothing?
Sure. But thanks again for coming out. I really appreciate it. Like I said, we do these every so often, so look for them online.
I love how you don't say weekly anymore.
Well,
then it was monthly, and now it's
we do
just
them when
whenever we get
can.
off our asses.
We
and
do
them.
have to work for a living,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
So I mean, we don't get paid for doing this.
One
but-
last shout out to the Rocket Lounge. Thank you guys
Absolutely.
very much. This
Dude.
this place kicks ass. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So until next time, Greg. Cheers.
I'm Greg.
All right, I'm John.
See ya.